It was me, Dan Whitley, Jason Becker were the ones talking to her in the back of the ambulance.
When you clear, or when you leave the scene, where is Ms. Reed at that point?
So the ambulance transported her to the Good Samaritan. We also detailed Sam Park as the driver.
So the gentleman who had driven, or the firefighter that had driven you in the engine to the scene that drives the ambulance away?
Yes, correct.
Would you say his name again, please?
Sam Park.
Sam what?
Sam Park.
Spell it, please, the last name.
P-O-C-H is the last name.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have no further questions.
Okay. Mr. Ready?
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Woodbury, you and I have never met or spoken, correct?
No.
I know you had said you were nervous, so I'm going to try and make this fairly brief,
Thank you.
sir. I just have a couple of areas that I'd like to go through with. So with regard to your interaction with Karen Reed and what you actually heard from her mouth, that's sort of where I want to concentrate, as opposed to anything that anybody else may have said to you about what they believe she might have said, okay?
Okay.
And it seems to me that your main interaction with her was not when the initial call came in to respond to, a man who was unresponsive in the snow. It was after you went back to the station in the engine and then came back to the scene for the purposes of the Section 12 that you described. Would that be fair to say?
Correct.
And when you came back to the scene for the Section 12, it's also fair to say that the Section 12 issue was your focus, correct?
Correct.
You had an order in hand, correct?
The police had it and they gave it to us when we got there.
Right. Okay. So you got an order in hand once you got there.
Correct.
Which is what you expected to happen, correct?
Yes.
And your focus at that point is, okay, and I don't want to be too, flip, but we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Is that a fair characterization?
That is one way to put it.
And you wanted to do it the easy way.
Yes, correct.
And you wanted to persuade Karen Reed that she should want to do it the easy way, correct?
Yes.
And after some conversation back and forth where she was initially resistant, she eventually agreed, yes, I'll do, not to put words in your mouth or hers, but to the effect of, yes, we'll do this the easy way, correct?
Did get her to agree to transport.
All right.
Now, he stated that the defendant's emotional state was all over the place. I think that could be argued because either A, she ran over her boyfriend, or B, it was a cover-up. She had nothing to do with it. She was traumatized that she found him under the snow. Stay tuned. We'll get you back in for more of the cross-examination.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, diving deeper into the murder case against Karen Reed. We'll bring in experts to weigh in as this highly divisive trial continues.
Closing Arguments, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
She doesn't want you to call the police, but she wants you to kill her husband.
None of this is normal. I know the manipulation.
If I didn't act, Jennifer was going to die that day.
Accomplice to Murder with Fanny Politan, Sunday night, 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Back now to Massachusetts, where testimony is underway in the Karen Reed trial. The Boston woman is accused of running over her police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe, after a night of drinking together. But Reed says she was simply dropping O'Keefe off at a friend's house that night, and that one of the people inside that house is responsible for his death. Let's get you back into court now. The jury is hearing from a paramedic who responded to the crime scene. He is under cross-examination.
State of mind, I believe you had testified that she appeared to be very distraught.
Yes, correct.
Going through a lot of emotions.
Yes.
Grief-stricken.
Oh, that's one of them, yes.
Hysterical at times.
Yes.
Raising her voice at times.
Yes.
Crying at times.
I didn't see any actual tears, but
that
type of emotional display.
All right. And so in terms of the only commentary that you heard with regard to her feelings or questions regarding John O'Keefe. It was the statements that you heard repetitively over and over and over again. Is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead?
That was some of the things she was saying, yes.
Your Honor, may we approach sidebar briefly?
Okay. Well, they have a sidebar. Let me bring in trial attorney, law enforcement analyst, Andrea Lewis. Thank you, Andrea, for joining us. Now, as we're listening to this testimony, you know, they're emphasizing on cross that Karen Reed said, is he dead, is he dead, is he dead? She was being repetitive. What is the point of that, do you think, for this jury?
Well, the really interesting thing about that is bias, we know, has become a focal point of this trial. And you've heard the defense argue time and time again that there's this bias or conspiracy going on with the police officers, and therefore there's a cover-up and they can't be trusted. But what's interesting about what you're saying is that a lot of these initial statements, the I hit him and the other things that Karen Reed have alleged to have heard to say, are all by paramedics and other first responders who don't share in that same conspiracy or this bias that the defense is alleging. So I think it's going to be much more difficult for them to distance themselves from those allegations, and boy, are they damning.
Yeah, I agree with you. Great analysis. If you're going to stand by for us, please, we're going to come back to you after we see some more. They're done with the sidebar. Let's go back into court for more of the cross.
So I think, Ms. Giannetti, I think you need the actual.
Yes. I was going to ask a couple of questions first and then grab it.
But it's right there for when you need it.
Lieutenant Woodbury, on your direct examination, you testified a bit, and I don't want to block a jury here, I'm sorry. You testified a bit about the injuries that you observed on John O'Keefe when you first arrived at the scene, correct?
Yes.
You testified about the swollen eye?
Yes.
And you also testified about the scratch marks that you saw on his forearm, correct?
Correct.
I'd like to show you, I'm going to approach in a minute, to show you what has been marked M for identification. And when I hand it to you, please keep it to yourself and look at it, and then look up at me when you're done, okay? Having reviewed M for identification, do you recognize what that depicts?
Yes.
What does it depict?
That is Mr. O'Keefe's right arm.
All right. Does that photograph appear to be a fair and accurate representation of the scratch marks that you observed on January 29th of 2022, sir?
Yes.
I would offer that, Your Honor.
Okay. That will be our next exhibit. And again, we'll have to maybe renumber. Counsel, before you leave today, we have to figure out how to keep everything straight.
Understood. And with the court's permission, Your Honor, may I have that published on the screen for the jury?
Yes.
Now, on direct examination, Lieutenant, hang on. Let me just have a moment. Good point. I'm going to try to get out of your way so everybody can see. With regard to the injuries that you described on direct examination, Lieutenant, I believe you would mainly concentrate.
I'm sorry, I need to, please take this down for me. I need to counsel inside.
Andrea Lewis still with us. Andrea, let me ask you about those scratches. I know that you are a law enforcement analyst. What about those scratches on the arm? How does law enforcement, or how should law enforcement treat something like that when they come upon a victim?
Well, first of all, with an open mind, right? Because at that point, when they come across this, they don't know what this could be. So the first thing they're going to want to do is not jump to any conclusions. We've heard a lot of different allegations in this case. Some are a little more plausible than others. We've heard a dog might have done that. We've heard that this could be related to the car, being hit by a car or other things. So they're going to want to document it, preserve the evidence, and then get the full story from the other people involved so that they can see how these injuries fit in the full picture.
And I do wonder if we're going to hear from experts about those injuries, because it looks like those marks are pretty deep. And it also, I noticed they're very parallel, as if something consistent made the marks. So we're going to have to wait and see. He also had a bruise on his face. So injuries that arguably were not made by her running over him with the car. If you're defending this client who says, this is cover up, I didn't do it, what are you looking for? What is your theme in the case?
Well, here they've come up with this conspiracy theme. And I will tell you, I don't think that is a very effective theme. You have to ask yourselves why, number one, why the conspiracy? Are all of these people joining together to cover up for? Normally, when you have a conspiracy, you have a handful of people who have joined forces in order to cover up some type of crime or wrongdoing. Here, in order to agree with or to buy the defense's theme, you'd have to believe that all of these people are engaged and participating in this conspiracy, from people at parties to paramedics and firefighters that didn't know this group beforehand, to a very big number of people. And the question I would have as a jury is why? To me, the stronger thing to attack is it seems like she's put herself in the scene. She seems like her statements themselves have put herself, have admitted, acknowledged that she was involved in some type of an accident or collision with him. So then if I'm the defense on this, I attack the intentional aspect. Was this more of negligence? Was this an accident that she just didn't see him, as opposed to going after all this big conspiracy and trying to pin it on somebody inside the party?
And what's amazing to me, though, is the number of supporters she has in the conspiracy theory. We just saw them outside standing with signs and their clothing all pink. So she has a lot of supporters that have been very vocal about she did not do this. We need to take a break. When we come back, of course, we will bring you back into court. Stay here on Court TV. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ashley Wilcott, of course, honored to be with you. Let's update you now on a hearing that happened today in Ohio for the defendant, Chad Dorman. He's the man charged with the shooting deaths of his 3 young sons just last year. Today, the judge confirmed with the defense that Dorman has agreed to waive his speedy trial rights. What does this mean? Well, it means that the July 8th trial date has now been vacated, and the judge scheduled a date of August 8th to hear arguments on the defense's motion asking to drop the death penalty against their client. That motion noted 2 experts have already examined Dorman and found that he suffered from a severe mental illness the day he allegedly pointed a loaded rifle at 4-year-old Hunter, 7-year-old Clayton, and 3-year-old Chase, his own sons, and then he pulled the trigger. The judge also appointed an expert for the state and set dates for additional experts from both sides to file their reports. We'll continue bringing you updates as the case against Chad Dorman develops. Now let's get you back to the killer or cover-up murder trial for Karen Reed. The 43-year-old has pled not guilty to second-degree murder, amongst other charges, in the death of her police officer boyfriend. And we're going back in now for more testimony. The state's next witness is on the stand. This is paramedic and firefighter Daniel Whitley.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
Daniel Whitley, W-H-I-T-L-E-Y.
And what do you do for work, sir?
I'm a paramedic firefighter with the Town of Canton Fire Department.
And And how long have you been a member of the Canton Fire Department?
I was hired in March of '06.
And prior to that work with the Canton Fire Department, did you work within that same field in any other capacity for any other company?
Yes, correct. I worked for American Medical Response out of Brockton as an EMT intermediate and a paramedic for 5 years.
And you're a certified paramedic, is that correct?
Correct.
And how long have you held that certification?
It was, I believe, November of 2006 that I got that certification.
And is there any sort of continuing educational component or recertification process that's involved with being a certified paramedic?
Yes, we recertify every 2 years. We're required to hold basic life support card, which is just generally CPR, and advanced cardiac life support, which is ACLS. It's more dealing with EKGs and how to run resuscitations, cardiac arrests, things of that nature.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention to January 28th and to January 29th of 2022, were you working with the Canton Fire Department on those dates?
Yes.
What kind of shift were you working on that?
24-hour shift, 8 a.m. to 8 a.m.
And where were you assigned on that particular date?
The Ponkbog Station, Station 2.
The Ponkabog Station, where is that located within Canton?
The north side of town on Southmont Street.
And how were you assigned to a specific duty or a specific?
Yes, I was assigned to Ambulance 2 with Jason Becker. As I was a field training officer at that point, and he was just finishing up his field training after he recently became certified as a paramedic.
And now, at some point shortly after 6 a.m., were you aware of a call or dispatch in regard to Station House 1?
Yes, we had just returned from a previous call about 5 a.m. and heard the tones go off. Actually, we were in the day room, which is where it's the living room of a fire station. And we heard the tones go off, we heard the police going to Fairview Road. And we just kind of sat and were wondering what was going on there.
Now, you yourself, you and firefighter Becker, were you dispatched to a call as well, approximately 6:41 or 6:42 a.m.?
Yes.
And at the time that you received that dispatch, what, if anything, were you aware of with regard to the prior call that the other ambulance went?
So when the tones go off between the two stations, we're able to hear what the dispatch complaint is, what they're going for, and it came in as, I believe, CPR in progress in the snow or something to that regard. So we knew that was a fairly serious call that Station 1 had gone to.
Now, when you received your dispatch at approximately 6:42 a.m. or so, what was that call in regard to, and where did you respond?
We were dispatched for a Section 12.
And as far as your assignments within the ambulance between yourself and firefighter Becker, with regard to this call, who was doing what?
I was driving. He's what we call the tech, the lead paramedic on the case. That's just generally how we operate.
And from your response, or your driving from Station 2 to Fairview Road, what, if anything, did you observe or experience en route in between the two?
At that point, it was snowing pretty heavily. We were coming down Chapman Street, getting ready to take the right onto Fairview. We nearly slid off the road, making the turn onto Fairview. It was snowing that heavily, and I don't believe the roads had been really plowed or treated or anything like that for us to, so it was pretty slippery.
Now, in addition to ambulance number 2 that you and firefighter Becker were in, what, if any, other sort of vehicles or apparatus was dispatched to this call as well?
There was Engine 3, which is the District 1 engine, and at least 2 police cruisers. And then another gray SUV kind of further down from where we parked.
Now, when you arrive in this area on Fairview Road, what, if anything, do you sort of observe as far as who's there when you arrive?
When I got out, my Lieutenant Woodbury and Sam Park were there.
And they were on the engine, is that correct?
They were on the engine, correct?
Now, beyond sort of the personnel from your department, you mentioned that there were some police officers there as well?
Yes, Mulaney and Saraf, and then 2 other females, at least 2 other females.
And the other 2 females, where were they when you first sort of get out of the ambulance?
A few yards ahead of us, a few dozen yards ahead of us, I'd say.
And were there any other vehicles beyond sort of first responders that you observed on?
Just that other gray SUV.
And so I guess my question is, where were the 2 females that you observed in relation to the gray SUV?
Near it, maybe in front of, maybe one was inside. There were 3 females there.
And at some point while you're on scene, you learned the identity of your patient, correct?
Yes.
And what was the name of the patient?
Karen Reed.
And you had some conversation with Karen Reed that day, is that correct?
Yes.
And do you see Karen Reed in the courtroom today?
I do.
Could you just describe as to where she's seated or an article of clothing that she's wearing?
She's seated up right at that table right there.
I'm sorry, if you could just point as to where she is.
Right here.
No, it's just that's record reflect identification.
Okay.
Now, when you first sort of arrive on scene, who, if anyone, is the first person that you talked to?
Lieutenant Woodbury and Sam Park.
And following that conversation, who, if anyone, do you speak to?
Probably briefly Lieutenant Mulaney, but more, I'm sorry, not Lieutenant, Officer Mulaney and Officer Saraf.
Now, following your conversation, well, let me ask you this sort of in general terms. When you respond to a call for a Section 12, what is sort of the protocol that you go through in regard to that?
Whether it's a Section 12 or any call, basically, the lead tech generally takes over immediate patient care, goes over, assesses. Usually the partner will go over and try and find out background details, try and find not only, well, especially for a Section 12, you want to get, the tech will get, which is Jason's role, the patient story, and then I'll get everyone else's story.
And at some point, do you have a conversation with Ms. Reed as well?
Oh, yes.
And where is that in relation to vehicles on scene? So what is that initial conversation?
The initial conversation, she was very upset. She kept saying, so we had a Section 12 written, and that was to take her to the hospital because she made threats against her life, saying, I don't want to live anymore. If my husband dies, I don't want to be alive anymore. And myself and Jason and Lieutenant Woodbury were kind of like, well, that's seemingly more in the lines of normal grieving process after something traumatic happens to a loved one, whether they're going to die or not. We kind of didn't feel like it kind of led to that level of a Section 12 to have her transported to the hospital. So at that point, I exited the ambulance and I went to speak with Officer Saraf, and I said, this kind of doesn't, if we want her to be at the hospital, get a full eval, we're going to need more than just, if my husband dies, I want to die, because that seems just like normal grieving things to say.
All right, when he first gets there, remember, his patient is Karen Reed, the defendant, and he's saying it's just normal grieving at this point. What else is he going to say, though? Stay tuned. We'll get you right back in.
We are underway in the trial of doomsday prophet Chad Daybell.
Prosecutors say they will seek the death penalty against him.
Investigators have recovered human remains at Chad Daybell's residence.
There's no way, Morgan, I can never come up with this.
His wife, Lori Vallow Daybell, has already been convicted.
Now, will her husband end up with the same fate?
It's just so hard to know where the truth ends.
It's the doomsday prophet, Chad Daybell, on trial. the state of Massachusetts versus Karen Reed, who's charged in the death of her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. Was she the killer, like the prosecutors claim, or is she being framed in a bizarre cover-up by the police? Let's go back into court now. The jury is hearing from a paramedic. He's testifying about a call received regarding Reed, the defendant, having a psychological issue.
I don't know whether it was Cruiser or what, but he came back, notified me that her...
Sustained.
And from that conversation, did you receive more information or more clarity as to statements that Ms. Reed had made?
Yes, Officer Saraf had said that...
Objection.
So, not what he said, sir. So,
we were informed
unmuted.
that...
Objection.
I'm not sure.
So you can't testify to what somebody else told you. You can when there's no objection regarding what Ms. Reed told you,
okay.
But you can't testify what anybody else told you.
Okay.
So when I say sustain, that means you have to stop.
Okay.
And the lawyer will ask another question. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Firefighter Whaley, at some point, specific to your conversations with the defendant, Ms. You described sort of her demeanor or any observations you made in relation to that as you were speaking with her.
Yes, she was very upset. She kept asking if there was any chance. She kept asking us if we knew if the person Ambulance 1 had transported was alive or dead, and we could not speak to that. She asked if somebody could be alive in the snow without a jacket for many hours. And at that point, we were just trying to give her any hope that whomever A1 transported was still alive. And we kind of just talked about far off hypothermia cases where, kids have fallen in rivers and been submerged for many minutes, maybe even hours, and survived with no neurological deficits. So we were just trying to give her some sort of hope on the way to the hospital that there was a chance that her husband could be alive.
Now, at this point, what, if anything, did you know about sort of the relationship between your patient, the defendant, Ms. Reed, and the patient from Ambulance 1 that had been transported previously?
She identified him as her husband.
And is that something that she said once or more than once?
Many, many times.
Now, she asked you some questions about his status and made specific reference to his clothing. Is that correct?
The only thing I recall is asking if he could have survived without a jacket.
Now, as far as these conversations that you had with Ms. Reed, where did they occur in relation to the ambulance?
They were in the back of the ambulance.
And who, if anyone, was present in the back of the ambulance beyond yourself and the defendant?
Jason Becker.
And with reference to, you mentioned that Firefighter Becker was sort of the lead paramedic or the lead tech on this, is that correct?
Yes.
So is there, from sort of his role and your role, what are some of the sort of differences in the duties and responsibilities in relation, we'll call it?
So for any Section 12, or our department policy is there will be 2 EMTs, paramedics, firefighters with during transport at all times. That's both for our safety and the patient safety. So that's why it wasn't just 2 EMTs or paramedics driving to the hospital. I was in back with Jason, and Sam Park was driving.
Now, as far as you testified earlier about observations of her being upset or distraught, is that correct?
Correct.
Was that consistent throughout your interaction with her, or?
No. There would be episodes where she would go from crying in her hands to all of a sudden perking up. She was crying about having to take care of kids, saying she couldn't do it. And I was saying, you know, you can do this. It's not as hard as it seems. She kept saying, I can't take care of these kids. They're not my kids, and they're not his kids. That's when I figured out who Ambulance 1 transported. And I was saying, well, it seems like you have a good, strong support system. People who came and helped you in a blizzard to help come find your husband. She said, she asked me if I knew Kerry Roberts. I said I did. She said anybody who knows Kerry Roberts wouldn't say those things. And that kind of took me aback a bit. It seemed strange to say something like that after you were just crying because your husband was dead.
Take you back just within...
I was just kind of surprised.
If I could take you back within that just for a minute. So you had testified that during that, her description, you sort of realized who was the patient in Ambulance 1, is that correct?
Yes.
And what, if anything, made you realize, or who did you think it was?
I live in and grew up in the Ponkpog neighborhood of Canton, and Mr. O'Keefe was known for taking on his niece and nephew after, I'm sorry, I'm not sure positive of the relationship, but I believe it was his sister and his brother-in-law passed away, and it was something people admired him for, people looked up to him for.
All right, still with us, trial attorney, law enforcement analyst, Andrea Lewis. You know, Andrea, listening to things like saying many, many times, my husband, my husband, my husband, when all of this is happening, to me means, well, maybe she thought I better say my husband or they're not going to tell me anything. Is there any significance from your perspective?
Not really. I mean, to the extent there is, it could be argued either way, right? We have a circumstance where both sides seem to be agreeing that she's upset. The real question is, why is she upset? Is it an act, you know, in order to throw the police off, or is it genuine emotion because the love of her life had just been killed? So I think a lot of these highs and lows that we're seeing her experience and hearing about her experiencing can really go both ways. I think we have to look in between at some of these little admissions that she's sprinkling in there that are a little more telling than just the references, you know, to John O'Keefe.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Tell us your final thoughts, if you would, today on how the prosecution is doing laying out this case.
I think they're doing well. There are certainly things that I think we all would argue could be done differently, or maybe even.
All right.
The strongest points to me. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt, Andrea. The strongest points are?
Oh, yeah, the strongest points to me are certainly the testimony from the EMTs and the other, in my opinion, unbiased witnesses who don't have a dog in this fight, who are just there responding to a call to help. I think they are the prosecution's biggest and the strongest witnesses here, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. They're just telling what happened and what they observed. Thank you so much to Andrea Lewis for joining me this hour. Coming up, more testimony in the killer or cover-up trial for Karen Reed. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Your front row seat to justice. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ashley Wilcott. Thank you so much for joining us. We are following two high-profile cases this afternoon here on Court TV. First, in Idaho, self-proclaimed doomsday prophet Chad Daybell is back in court for the murders of his first wife and his new wife's two children, JJ and Tylee. Prosecutors say that Daybell and his new bride, Lori Vallow, used their extreme religious beliefs to justify those killings. And in Massachusetts, testimony continues in the Karen Reed trial. She is accused of killing her police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe, by hitting him with her car and then leaving him to die in the snow. Today, the jury visited the home of Brian Albert, a fellow Boston police officer. That is the home where John O'Keefe's body was found in the front yard in the early morning hours of January 29th of 2022. We've heard testimony He was underneath the snow. Right now, the jury is hearing from a paramedic who responded to that crime scene in order to treat Karen Reed, the defendant. Let's go back in.
I moved into the Ponquag neighborhood back after living outside of Canton for a few years. The O'Keefes lived diagonally across from me. I never had any sort of interaction with him or anything. When I moved in, my wife was probably about 6 months pregnant, and I had 2 toddlers, so I was pretty busy. I figured he was pretty busy. I never even had a chance to introduce myself or anything before he moved to Meadows, which is how I kind of figured out.
Your Honor, I object to this line of questioning.
Okay, next, sustain. Next question.
Now, you would also mention during your conversation with the defendant that she had said some things about Kerry Roberts, correct?
Correct.
And how is it that you know Kerry Roberts?
Well, Kerry lives around the corner from me.
Objection.
No, I'll allow that. Next question, please.
How long have you known Kerry Roberts?
Just from moving back into the neighborhood, she would run the neighborhood block party, and she put out that she would like the fire truck there on the neighborhood Facebook page, so I volunteered to bring the fire truck to the neighborhood block party.
And was Ms. Roberts seen on Fairview when you arrived in your ambulance?
Yes.
So she was one of the other females along with the defendant?
Correct.
Now, with reference to when you brought up as far as support system and included Ms. Roberts within that, what, if anything, did the defendant say about Ms. Roberts?
Objection.
Sustain. Next question, please.
This conversation that you had with the defendant in the ambulance, about how long a period of time are we talking about?
20, 25 minutes.
And beyond what you've already testified to, what did sort of that conversation consist of, or what was the sort of tone and tenor of that conversation?
Again, we were just trying to give her any support. She was, once we were getting closer to the hospital, we
Objection.
So the tone and tenor. So what can you tell us about that? That's admissible, Mr. Yannetti. Go ahead.
The tone, she would go from being almost despondent to when she asked me if I knew Kerry Roberts, the only tone I can use to describe it is snarky.
Objection. Move to strike.
I'll strike that.
Now, you transported to Good Samaritan, is that correct?
Correct.
And when you, during the transport, where are you in relation to Ms. Reed from Fairview to Good Samaritan?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
During the transport, Ms. Reed is where within the ambulance?
I believe we have what we call a tech bench, which is a long bench. There's the ambulance stretcher, and then to next to the ambulance stretcher is, we call it the CPR seat, and then that's where Miss Reed sat. And then I was in what we call the airway seat, which is basically like a captain's chair behind the stretcher.
And in addition to yourself and the defendant, who, if anyone, else was sort of in the back of the ambulance at that time?
During transport?
Yes.
During transport, it was just me, Jason Becker, and Miss Reed.
Okay. So yourself, along with firefighter Becker, in the back, right?
Correct.
Who was driving the ambulance?
Sam Park.
Now, when you arrived at Good Samaritan, what, if anything, happened?
Miss Reed was asking to be able to see John, and I made the decision that I would run ahead to see if that was in the realm of possibility with the emergency room physician there. So I ran ahead. I came into the, they call it the code room at Good Sam, and I asked if the wife could see the husband. The ER doctor asked if she would be upset. I said if she would be upset if she was allowed to or not. And I said she's going to be upset. I believe she's going to be upset either way. He was asking if she would get in the way of the resuscitation efforts, and I said it's possible. She's very upset.
And so, once you arrive at the hospital with the patient, where do you go along with Ms. Reed?
We escorted her down to we call it the psych hall or the behavioral hall at Good Sam.
And about how long was it after you escorted her into the hospital that you stayed with her following that?
At least 10 minutes.
And during those 10 minutes, how would you describe sort of her behavior or demeanor during that time?
Objection.
No, he can testify to that.
He was giving the nurses a hard time about, I'm sorry, she was giving the nurses a hard time about having to get into a Johnny, about having to submit a urine sample. Even the ER text went to the physician who was in the code room to see if she could not have to wear a Johnny, and the ER doc said no, if she's in the psych hall, she's a psych patient, needs to be in a Johnny. So at that point, there was just a nurse and a tech. We don't usually leave a psych patient with just a single nurse and a tech, so we decided to wait until security had gotten there before we left.
Nora, may I have one moment?
Yes.
Nothing further at this time, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Giannetti.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
So, Mr. Whitley, when you showed up, you learned that Karen Reed was the patient that you were to deal with, correct?
Correct.
And it was your expectation that she would be going to the hospital, correct?
Correct.
One of the things that you do when you transport somebody to the hospital is you try to get a medical history, correct?
Yep.
Why is that important?
Generally, we get pertinent medical history to pass on to the hospital. So if something were to happen where the patient wasn't able to describe their past medical history, it gets passed on to the next caregiver, which would be the nurses, doctors at the hospital.
Okay. More information is always better than less information, correct?
I would say so.
And with regard to Ms. Reed, did you take a medical history from her?
I assume Jason did.
Okay. Did you learn the results of that medical history?
You'd have to refer to Jason's report.
I may have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Mr. Whitley, if I Gotcha. I'm actually going to show you two documents with your permission. One would be Jason's report.
Okay.
And you were talking about Jason Becker, correct?
Correct.
The other is a police report from Sergeant Yuri Buchnick. I'm going to give you the second page of that. Okay?
So let's do them one at a time.
Sure. And you've asked for Jason Becker's report, so I'll give you that first, okay?
Okay.
And when I approach you, I'm going to hand this to you, and I just ask you to look at it silently by yourself.
Okay.
And then look up at me when you're done.
Okay.
going to collect that from you, if you don't mind.
The first report was the NFIRS report from my lieutenant.
Was Jason Becker's report included in it as
Yes.
well?
Yep.
Having reviewed those documents, does that refresh your memory as to the medical history that was taken?
Yes.
And what can you tell us about that?
Just lists multiple sclerosis.
What is multiple sclerosis?
I believe it's a neurodegenerative disease where the myelin sheathing of the trying to think of the word here, but
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
no, I understand.
I'm sure you do. It's a disease. Correct?
It's a disease that's progressive and has neurological muscle control things involved with it.
And when you say progressive, that means it gets worse over time as you age?
As I understand it.
And that was the medical history you got from Karen Reed?
Correct.
I have nothing further.
All right. So, sir, you are.
All right, coming up, the next witness takes the stand, another paramedic who responded to the crime scene. You don't want to miss a beat. We'll be right back, bringing you more.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, diving deeper into the murder case against Karen Reed. Prosecutors say she hit her police officer boyfriend with her SUV, while she claims it's all one big setup.
So she said, I hit him. She repeated it.
We'll bring in experts to weigh in as this highly divisive trial continues.
Closing Arguments with Vinny Politan, tonight at 8, 7 Central, only on Court TV.
Back now to Massachusetts for the killer or cover-up murder trial for Karen Reed. Just after midnight on January 29th of 2022, prosecutors say Reed hit her boyfriend with her car after dropping him off at a friend's house after a night of drinking. The Boston police officer was found dead in the front yard of Brian Albert's house hours later, covered in snow. But the defense says something happened inside that house that night that caused O'Keefe's death, and that everyone there is now trying to cover it up and blame Reed instead. Let's get you back into court now. The state's next witness has just taken the stand.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
First name is Jason, last name is Becker, Becker.
And what do you do for work, sir?
I'm a firefighter paramedic at the Canton Fire Department.
And how long have you been a member of the Canton Fire Department?
5.5 years.
And prior to that, what, if any, other employment did you have sort of within that same field?
I worked at Found Ambulance and South Shore Hospital.
How long did you work at each of those respective positions?
Found Ambulance was about 5 years. South Shore Hospital, approximately 3 years.
And with regard to South Shore Hospital, what is it that you did there?
I was a nursing assistant in the emergency room.
And with regard to your work as a firefighter paramedic for the Canton Fire Department, you were a certified paramedic?
Yes.
And when did you first receive that certification?
October 2021.
And is that something that you receive, or when you receive that, is something that goes on in perpetuity, or is that something that you have a continuing educational component or recertification?
It's con ed education. You do it 2 years, you have to recertify.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention to January 28th, 2022 into January 29th of 2022. Were you working on that occasion?
I was.
And where were you assigned? I'm sorry. What type of shift were you working on that occasion?
What type of shift?
Yes, like what hour to what hour?
8 a.m. to 8 a.m., 24 hours.
So 8 a.m. on the 28th until 8 a.m. on the 29th.
Correct.
And where were you assigned on that day?
I was at Canton Station 2, Ambulance 2.
And who, if anyone else, was assigned with you to Ambulance 2 at Station 2 on that day?
Daniel Whitley, firefighter Daniel Whitley.
Now, at some point when you were working on the 29th, shortly after 6 a.m. or so, did you become aware of a call for station house number 1?
Yes.
And what, if anything, were you aware of as far as that earlier call?
As far as we know, there was a man down on the side of the road, initial dispatch. And I believe it was upgraded eventually to CPR in progress.
Now, at some point following that, approximately 6:41 a.m. or so, did you, your station house, get a dispatch to Fairview Road?
Yes.
And what, if anything, was that dispatch?
A psych eval, possible section 12.
And in addition to yourself and firefighter Whitley in ambulance 2, what, if any, other sort of vehicles or apparatuses were dispatched by your department to that call as well?
Canton Engine 3.
And if you know, who, if anyone, was on Canton Engine 3 at that time?
Lieutenant Greg Woodbury, firefighter Sam Park.
Now, with regard to the ambulance that you were in with firefighter Whitley, what were sort of, well, let me ask you this, between sort of call volume, what, if any, sort of policy or protocol is there as far as who does what on a particular call?
We switch off.
And so on this particular call that you were dispatched to Fairview Road, what were sort of each of your respective duties and responsibilities between yourself and firefighter Whitley?
Firefighter Whitley was the driver at that point, and it was my tech, is what it's called. So the next patient would be mine.
And so as sort of you were the lead tech on this, is that correct?
Correct.
And so as far as the lead tech's role, what, if any, duties or responsibilities do you have in regard to writing a report?
It's my report. That'd be right.
May I approach the witness?
Yes.
Tell me what documents just asked you to review that look up for me.
The first report up here is the engines. Second one would be mine.
You recognize the first few pages of that as the engines report, and the last few are yours, correct?
Correct.
And that's your report with relation to this dispatch and this call, correct?
Correct.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I want the seat to introduce and admit as the next.
So both reports through this witness? Is there any objection?
Yeah, just take a look at the DA's copy.
Okay.
May we approach?
Okay.
A perfect time to welcome my guest for this hour, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Jeffrey Wolf. Always great to have you on. What do you make of this testimony from every paramedic, fire department person who responded to the crime scene? We've heard from a lot of them. Is this overkill, or do you think it's necessary for the state to prove that she murdered her boyfriend?
Well, first of all, not a former prosecutor. Love to point that out. I've never put people in cages. But I'll tell you this, I think it is necessary because the defense is 100% throwing this on the police department as a conspiracy and a brothers in blue. And so they need to come at this from the firefighter paramedic perspective as much as they can to try and say that it's not just police officers working together here. They need to try and come at this from a human perspective from the paramedic EMTs. But the problem is that what we've seen, and we saw it out here in Colorado with the Elijah McClain case, that the paramedics and firefighters, as much as we see in TV shows that they're such rivals, when it comes to investigating crimes and working crime scenes, they do work in conjunction with each other. So it's going to be the defense's job to tie these two professions together to show that they could work in conjunction to work in this conspiracy together. And so the prosecution's doing what they can to try and take the focus away from the police department and put it on paramedics and firefighters. But it's going to be interesting to see what the defense does to tie them all back together.
And that was my next question. And I know you're a criminal defense attorney. My apologies, Jeffrey. But let me ask you, as the defense, What do you try to do with that information? I mean, for instance, one of the paramedics testified that he felt Karen Reed was acting like a grieving person might act when they find their significant other under a bunch of snow, seemingly deceased. And so I think that helps the defense. What else do you try to do?
Well, I think you try to play up those paramedics and firefighters, the ones that are responding as appropriate, EMT type people are responding to it. And then also you want to play up the ones that aren't, like the guy who was just there who couldn't help himself to keep trying to offer information above and beyond the question he was being asked to try and say that she was acting crazy or acting aggressive or combative. There are certain members of this firefighter paramedic team that are clearly in the camp against her. And so they need to show that, and they need to show those relationships. And they all live in this neighborhood together. And so that's where the conspiracy comes into play, is that they all know each other. And the ones that are coming in and acting like human beings and saying that they're seeing a grieving person, those are the ones that you want to highlight as the ones that aren't necessarily on the side of the conspiracy, but that the other ones may be.
And Jeffrey, it's funny, you and I both noticed that sometimes you can't control the witness. Even though you're asking specific questions, they like to say what they want to say. All right, stay with us. We have to squeeze in a short break. When we come back, though, we're going to get you back into the hearing trial against Karen Reed. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ashley Wilcott, so honored to be with you. Turning back now to the killer or cover-up murder trial for Karen Reed. She's charged in the death of her police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe, but Reed's defense claims that she's being framed as part of a cover-up by O'Keefe's fellow officers. On the stand now, a paramedic who responded to the crime scene. Let's go back into court for more of the direct examination.
When you first sort of arrive in the area of 34, when you arrive in the area of Fairview Road, what, if anything, is it that you first observe upon your arrival?
Coming down the street or on scene?
Yes, coming down the street.
Coming down the street, just live police lights. You could see the fire engine, and I believe I said it's one black SUV.
And where is it that you and the ambulance sort of parked in reference to those other vehicles that you see?
I believe we parked, if the SUV was facing towards us, we parked to the left. I don't recall where the police cruiser was, though.
And when you first arrived there, who, if anyone, is it that you first speak with when you get there?
When we got on the ambulance, I passed Officer Saraf and Officer Mulaney. They kind of briefed us, and then I walked over to the black SUV.
And when you walk over to the black SUV, who is it that you observe in that black SUV?
I saw two females.
And of those two females, do you see one of them in the courtroom today?
I do.
Could you just identify as to where she's seated or an article of clothing that she's wearing?
Right over there, the jacket on.
That's the record reflect identification of the defendant by the witness.
Okay.
Now, with respect to the defendant, Ms. Reed, where within the vehicle is she when you first come up to the vehicle and observe?
From what I remember, she was in the front passenger seat.
And what, if any, knowledge did you have as far as the defendant, Ms. Reed, and her relationship to the earlier call that ambulance wanted been dispatched to?
Very little. I think we had gotten briefed that she was the wife of the previous patient.
And was that something that she had stated or something that somebody else had stated? Where does that awareness come from?
I believe it was one of the Canton police officers that said it.
I'm sorry, what was that answer?
It was one of the Canton police officers.
Okay.
And so when you walk up to the car, what is it that you say to her, or what, if any, conversation did you have with Ms. Reed at that time?
So I went up to the window and introduced myself and just kind of asked what was going on.
And how did she respond to
She was kind of, she was distraught. She was crying. She kind of told us that the statements she may have made, she didn't mean it because of the current events that she had just gone through.
What, if anything, did she say about that? If anything, did she say about what she had gone through?
That she had just done CPR on her husband.
And so she referred to him as her husband as well?
Yes.
And this conversation that you had sort of at the side of the SUV, is that through the door, through the window?
From what I recall, it was through the window.
And at some point, does the conversation move to the ambulance?
Correct.
About how long was the conversation at the vehicle before the conversation shifted to the ambulance?
5 to 10 minutes.
And as far as your dispatch for a psych or a Section 12, correct?
Correct.
Can you explain to the jury sort of that process, just in general terms first, as far as what does that process entail?
And when we get on scene?
Yes.
For a section?
Yes, please.
We go on scene, we kind of look at the environment, see what the environment's like, see if the patient's cooperative, uncooperative, what their demeanor is, if there's any obvious self-harm. If there's none, we kind of go up and talk to them, get a report, and ask them some basic triage questions.
And is that sort of the policy or the protocol or what you followed in this instance with Ms. Reed?
Correct.
Now, beyond what she had indicated to you initially, what, if anything, was she asking you during the course of your conversation with her once you were in the ambulance?
She kept asking if he was dead or could he be dead.
Is that something that she said once or more than once or something else?
More than once.
And could you describe sort of the tone of her voice when she was saying?
It was kind of like it was a rapid kind of pressured speech. She was just a lot repetitive.
And as you were speaking with her, what, if any, observations did you make of her facial area?
She had blood on her face and her neck and her chin. Blood around her mouth, her neck and chin.
And so with regard to sort of any earlier suicidal statements, what, if anything, did she say in relation to that?
She said she made him because she just went through a traumatic event, seeing her husband dead, and she had no plan on acting on it.
Now, pursuant to a Section 12 call, what, if anything, are you doing as far as documentation goes with respect to vital signs, things like that?
Well, it depends on the situation. In a situation with misreads, I took a regular, just vital signs, pulse oximetry to see your heart rate. But for someone like a female psych patient, it's more verbal.
And as far as any of those sort of vital signs and things that you took, what, if anything, abnormal did you note in regard to that?
No, nothing too abnormal. Just the heart rate might have been a little bit high, but within normal range.
Could you please keep your voice up, sir? Thank you.
Sorry. With the vital signs, her heart rate was a little high. It was 98, but it was nothing concerning.
And during the time that you're having this conversation with her in the back of the ambulance, how would you describe her demeanor throughout?
She would have periods of calmness, and then other periods she would appear agitated because she didn't want to go to the hospital. But all in all, she was cooperative with us.
Now, at some point, she's cooperative, correct, and agrees to go?
Eventually, yes.
When you say eventually, was there some conversation related to that?
We kind of mentioned to her basically what a Section 12 is. And unfortunately, she'd have to come with us voluntarily or involuntarily.
So you're explaining the process to her, is that correct?
Correct.
Eventually, she agrees to go, correct?
Correct.
And as far as the transport goes, who, if anyone, is in the back of the ambulance with her during the transport period?
Me and Firefighter Whitley.
And who, if anyone, was driving the ambulance to the hospital?
Firefighter Park.
And which hospital did you transport Ms. Reed to?
We went to the Good Samaritan Hospital.
Now, during the course of transfer to the hospital or transport to the hospital, what, if anything else, did Ms. Reed say with reference to children?
She was talking about Mr. O'Keefe's children, and she was unsure, and she didn't know if she'd be able to take care of them. She was worried about that.
She was worried about that.
Yeah, she's worried about who would take care of the children if he was pronounced dead.
And what, if anything, did she say about herself in reference to the children?
She didn't think that she could take care of them on her own.
Now, as far as this other person or the patient from the earlier call, how did she refer to that person in relationship to herself?
She was calling him the husband.
Now, with reference to this particular, with reference to Ms. Reed in this conversation, what, if anything, did she say in regard to the last time that she had spoken to who she called her husband?
She had said that they had gotten into an argument. She was sad because that was the last thing she had said to him, was the argument, but she didn't go into detail on what the argument was about or what was said.
Now, with regard to her speaking about sort of the children, what, if any?
All right, we do need to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get you back in for more testimony. We're going to hear more of what Karen Reed said and did. Stay with us.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, diving deeper into the murder case against Karen Reed. Prosecutors say she hit her police officer boyfriend with her SUV, while she claims it's all one big setup.
So she said, I hit him. She repeated it.
We'll bring in experts to weigh in as this highly divisive trial continues.
Closing Arguments with Vinnie Politan, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Welcome back. We are in the high-profile trial against defendant Karen Reed. She's charged with the murder of her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, who was found dead in the snow outside his fellow police officer's home in 2022. On the stand now, we're going to take you back in where we left off. This is a paramedic who responded to the scene. Let's go back in for more of his direct examination.
With children?
Yes.
I don't recall.
The other female party that Ms. Reed was initially with in the vehicle when you first arrived, did you know who that was?
I don't know who she was.
And at any point in time, subsequent to that, did you learn who she was?
I did.
And who did you learn her to be?
She was Miss Carrie Roberts.
And with relation to your conversation with Ms. Reed on that day, January 29th, what, if anything, did she say about Ms. Roberts?
Objection.
Sustained.
With regard to the sort of medical questions that you were asking, from those medical questions, what, if any, questions would you typically ask someone with relation to consumption of alcohol or drugs?
Well, part of the psych assessment, I asked if she had taken any drugs or alcohol, and she had denied it at that point.
She said that she had not, correct?
Correct.
The observations that you testified to earlier in regard to her and by her I mean Ms. Reed's demeanor. Did that change at all during the course of your interaction with her, or was that consistent throughout?
Demeanor as in...
It's a poorly phrased question. Let me try and rephrase it for you. So, with regard to her demeanor, throughout the course of your interaction with her, how would you describe that?
She was cooperative. Then she'd be calm, and then eventually she would kind of get a little agitated and repetitive questions. But she seemed distraught.
Now, with respect to the person she indicated was her husband, what, if any, questions did she ask either you or Firefighter Whitley or both in relation to him?
She was asking if he was dead, or could he be dead, could he be dead, and she said, could I have hit him?
Was that something that she asked once or more than once?
It wasn't a lot. It was more of, could he be dead, could he be dead?
So somewhat repetitive, is that correct?
Correct.
Just one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Sorry. Firefighter Becker, just for my own clarification. You had testified earlier that first arriving on scene and first spoke with Ms. Reed, she indicated that there was some statements that she said there were some statements that she did not meet, correct?
Correct. Suicidal statements.
And so, exactly. So my question is, that was in reference to the suicidal statements she had made prior to your arrival, correct?
Correct.
Not to any subsequent statements, correct?
Correct.
Nothing further.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Rona. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
You and I have never met, right?
I don't believe so.
I wanted to go back to one piece of testimony that you offered on direct examination, if I may.
Sure.
You had, in response to a question from the prosecutor about the medical history and your question to Ms. Reed about whether she had had any alcohol to drink. I believe your answer today was she denied having drank alcohol the night before?
At the time that she was, she could have drank, I don't know if she drank alcohol the night before, but at that time I asked if she had any drugs or alcohol, and she said no.
I'm sorry, if I just didn't hear
Yeah,
the
you
answer.
need to keep your voice up, sir, or speak directly into
Sorry.
the microphone.
So I asked her if she had any drugs or alcohol, and she said no.
Oh, if she had any drugs.
Well, if she'd taken any drugs or alcohol, she said no.
Did you specify a time period?
I just assumed it'd be in the last few hours for the reason why we were there.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Unsure if she had alcohol days prior, but for the reason why we were there.
Okay. So, was it your understanding that the two of you had an understanding of what you were asking?
Sure.
Objection, move to strike.
Yeah. So the objection sustained. It's stricken. Ask the question differently, Mr. Yannetti.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right. So, I guess with regard to your intent and your state of mind when you were asking that question, you were asking, had you taken any drugs or alcohol within the last few hours? That's what you meant to ask?
Objection.
So the objection sustained.
What did you specifically ask?
So when I ask a patient if any drugs or alcohol, I'm talking about at that point in time, but an hour before, 2 hours before, not days before, weeks before.
Okay.
So-
And this was at 6:40 in the morning,
Correct.
Did you smell any alcohol on her at that time?
I did not.
Okay. You would agree that she did tell you at some point that she had had alcohol the night before, correct?
No.
All right. So This is now, what's today, May 3rd of 2024?
Correct.
And this happened back in January, on January 29th of 2022?
Correct.
You were interviewed by a Trooper Michael Proctor on February 14th of 2022. Do you recall that?
I recall meeting with him, yes.
And February 14th of 2022 would have been a little bit more than 2 weeks after January 29th of 2022, correct?
Correct.
Your memory of what Karen Reed told you about whether she had anything to drink the night before would have been much better on February 14th of 2022 when you were talking to Trooper Michael Proctor than it would be today, correct?
Correct.
Because your memory doesn't get better over time, correct?
Certain circumstances, sure.
All right. And with regard to whether Karen had indicated that she took any drugs, you told Trooper Proctor she said that she had not, correct?
Correct.
With regard to whether she had had alcohol the night before, you told Trooper Proctor on February 14th of 2022 that she did consume alcohol last night, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
All right, I'm going to see a sidebar on this. Please bring that with you, please.
Sidebar, perfect time to bring back in Jeffrey Wolf. Jeffrey, give us your final thoughts as you're watching this unfold.
It's wonderful impeachment is what it is, and this is the second time I've seen the defense do great impeachment. There is a way you do it. You lock somebody into an answer, and then you go ahead and set them up for impeaching them. Your memory was better back then than it is now, and then you bring out the document you're going to impeach them with. That's why the prosecution is objecting. They don't want to see their witness impeached. This is a clear point. They think they have the defendant locked into lying about having alcohol the night before, and the defense has it in black and white that she told this witness that she had drank the night before. This is perfect impeachment. This is exactly how it's done. Trial lawyers should watch it.